Today we're going to be checking the valve clearances on the engine. I'm going to start on the left side first. I'm going to remove all of the valve cover and remove the spark plug, and then we're going to find top dead center. We're going to check the valve clearances with our feeler gauge and feeler gauges, and hopefully they're all within spec. I'm hoping that this crash bar doesn't get into my way, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start by taking off the valve cover. Before taking off the valve cover, you might want to make sure that you've got something to catch the oil, because some of the oil is going to drip out from underneath here, and you're gonna need something to catch the oil there. So you want to start this operation with a cold engine. So I have not started this engine yet for the day, and so we're going to want to make sure that the engine is totally cold. Put it on the side stand, on the center stand, and get cracking. You're going to need a tool, something like this, to pull your coil off of your spark plug. To take this off, you just have to remove the screw that is in front. There's one single screw that fits in the front of the engine here. Okay, so you need to unscrew that and then just pull this off. Once you've done that, then you've got to remove this coil, as I mentioned before. So you slip this over here, and then you should be able to pull straight out. But before doing that, you want to take that clip off. It'll make it easier. So you take that clip off there. You'll need a small screwdriver to lift the tab and then pull it out. Okay? Once you do that, then you can pull the coil out. See? Little screwdriver, lift the tab, pull that out, and I would set it aside. Move it out of the way, and then you can pull this off. You just slip it over the slot of the head there, and then pull like that. This is how it should look. Do a little inspection. That looks nice and clean. Have a clean paper towel or something like that, and give it a little wipe, and set it aside. Actually, my trusty old oil rag might be a better choice right now. Let me go grab that. Here's my oily rag. I've had this rag for many years. Just got just the right amount of greasiness on it. So I just give that a quick little wipe, set it aside, and let's extract the plug. To extract the plug, you'll need a deep 14mm socket like this. Okay, so it's way down in there. You put it in, you check it. You'll need an extension as well. You've got that, and then you should be able to put the socket on and carefully do that. Break the seal, and then you should be able to remove it fairly easily. Try to make sure that the extension doesn't gall with the side of the hole going deep into the engine. You could leave that in, I suppose, until you take the cover off, but I'm going to pull it out now. And there's the plug. Oh, this plug looks beautiful. I don't know if you can see that here, how good the focus is, but that looks really nice. Excellent. I'm very happy with that. Smells good. There's no oily smell to it. So to me, engine is burning good. It's not fouling up, and it's not overly lean. So what I'm going to do here, it looks as though, I know you probably can't see it, but it looks as though the the center electrode might be slightly worn. So I'm going to have a look at that now and then decide. Before I put this back in, I've got a pair of plugs. I'm going to decide whether to change my plugs. So I'll set that aside for now. That's the easy part of the job. As you go along, you should be wiping any kind of grease that you find in way of the covered areas. Wipe that as you go along and keep the job clean. Alright, let's take this cover off. You've got to undo these bolts here and just pull this off. Break the seal a little bit and pull it off. There is something in front here, some wires that you might want to, in the front of the engine, that you might want to remove. I don't know if you've got to remove them. I don't believe so. It's been a while since I took this off. But we'll see. Should be able to get this cover off without removing them. Let's give it a shot. Good, I've unscrewed these. Just pull. You see? This is what I was talking about. I've got a little bit of a mess going on my floor. The side stand is up. So, word to the wise. When you're doing the left side, put the side stand up. The side stand is down right now, so it's stopping my little flange from going all the way into the right position. But what I can report is that the valve cover comes off without taking off that wire in front. So that's one good thing. It comes off without doing that, and it also makes a mess of your crash bars. So let's wipe this up a little bit. I've left all of the screws or the bolts into the cover. I'm going to do a proper cleanup afterwards, so I'm not too worried about that. Just get the major portion of the oil that's dripped all over the place. Get that off. You might want to pull this gasket off if it comes off and reseat it, but no, it doesn't want to. Leave it well enough alone. So you wipe that and you set it aside. And then, I'm looking at my garage floor. There's a bit of a mess. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit and I'll get back to the video. My hands are kind of greasy now, so this is going to mess up the camera. To find top dead center, I had to fashion one of these tools out of 2 straws. I had to stick them together and glue them together. Well, not glue them, but paste them together. And I put a band there, as you can see, with an arrow. The arrow indicates which end I have to put into the spark plug hole to rest on top of the piston. And what happens is, what I do is have an assistant turn the back wheel when the engine is in 6th gear. Turn the back wheel until this straw goes in and out and comes out such that the bottom of that band is aligned with the edge of this hole here. At the same time, the intake lobes and the exhaust lobes should be pointing respectively up and out, and the exhaust lobe should be pointing down and out. Okay, that's when all 4 valves are closed and you know the engine is in top dead center. At that point is when you actually go and use your feeler gauges and measure the gaps between the cam lobes and the followers behind. So for this one here, I'd have to go in from the top and measure down, and for the bottom ones I have to come from the bottom and measure upwards. And the tolerances, I believe, I'm going to double check that, are 0.1 millimeters to 0.7 millimeters for the intake, and for the exhaust is 0.34 to 0.41. I'm going to double check that and put it up on the screen. But I'm going to go ahead now and test those gaps, check those gaps and see what it is on the left side. So starting off with a 0.1, I'm going to put my feeler gauge down, and I can see it's passing easily. There is some grabbing, so it's larger than that. So I'm going to find the next thickness and check it out. Okay. 0.2, The next thickness I have here would be, I had them all neatly arranged so that I can pull them all out at one time, and then I let it slip back. So 0.13, let's try 0.13 now. 0.13 is binding. It's binding a bit. Oh no, it's going through. It's going through just nicely. So I'd say that's probably around 0.13. Let's try the next one, 0.15. 0.15 is getting up there. Let's try 0.15. Make sure you don't have two of them stuck together. 0.15 and 0.15 is not going down. So I've got a 0.13 on the forward intake. This is the forward end, the forward intake valve. Sorry you couldn't see that, but I'm going to just to make sure that it shows on the video, and then I'm going to check the rest of them off camera. 0.35 going from the bottom. Yeah, 0.35 is much better. Let's try 0.38. Now I'm actually getting an accurate measurement from as opposed to before. Okay, 0.38 is not going to move side to side at all, and it is just binding up. So it's around 0.37, I would think, for the ideal measurement. And for this side here, bring up the light. This side it's binding here. That's 0.38. 0.38 was binding there. Let's see 0.35 again. 0.35. 0.35 is tight. Okay. So it's about I would say it's in spec, because 0.34, 0.3 to 0.41 is where it's supposed to be, and it's tight at 0.35. So maybe 0.34 is just on spec. So I would say this whole left cylinder is okay. Check these two plugs out. Hopefully I can get some focus. As you can see, the old plug is slightly worn. It's not focusing. Okay, good. It's slightly worn on the center electrode, and it's shaped, it's tapered in. The right plug is the new plug, and it's nice and square. So I'm going to go ahead and replace these plugs. This is on the left side alone, and I would say that the right side is probably very similar. So I'm going to go replace the plugs, because I think that this is worn. I've got to gap them properly, and then I'm going to go and replace the plugs on the bike. Okay, so I've put the valve cover back on. Now we tighten these three here in sequence. I'm going to do it like that. And the tightening torque is, I believe it's 10 Newton meters. So we're going to tighten it using our torque wrench to 10 Newton meters. I already snugged them up. So let's try. That's 10. 10. Not very much. That's 10. One more time around. 10. 10. 10. Done. Now the spark plug has to go in. I already checked the gap on the spark plug. The gap is correct out of the box, and the gap should be 0.7 to 0.9. Where is the? I gotta get that on the other side. 0.7 to 0.9 millimeters is the gap between the center electrode and the side electrodes. Okay, and the wear limit is when that gap is given that you left it like that. When that gap is 1 millimeter. Now one could say, well, I can always tap in the side electrodes to make it the right gap, but for me, the more important thing is that that shouldn't be a curved electrode. That center electrode should be nice and square, like I showed in the previous clip. So it is because of the non-squareness of that center electrode that I'm going to be changing these plugs, or else I could have cleaned the plugs and put them back in. But it's going to get better combustion when I clean the plugs, so I'm going to just when I change the plugs, so I'm just going to go ahead and change the plugs. New plug. Gingerly put it down, all the way down, find a hole and then turn it anti-clockwise to make sure you're not cross-threading anything. Okay, and then tighten it down. Tighten it down by hand. Notice I'm using the long extension. Now I'm thinking ahead. It would be nice to have some dielectric grease for that coil. I can't think where I have my dielectric grease, but anyway, we'll worry about that in a few seconds. So here we go. Oh, I've got to change it. Right now it's set on 12 for the valve cover bolt. So let me just check and set that torque to 12 Newton meters. Handy to have a good little small torque wrench. And here we go. 0.1, so 12 Newton meters. Put it back on. Again, making sure that that shaft doesn't bind up or gall with the side of the... There we go. Good enough. That's tight enough. So we've got our plug installed, we've got these 3 bolts here. Now it's just a matter of putting the coil back on and then putting that cover back over the coil, and then this side is done. I'd like to put some dielectric grease on that. Let me go see if I can find some dielectric grease and I'll be back. Look what I found. So I'm going to squirt a little bit of dielectric grease right down in the hole. Doesn't have to be too far. And squirt it down and put it in way of, actually, if I were smart, I'd have put that dielectric grease on the tip of the spark plug before I put it down in the hole. But I guess what I'll have to do is go get one of my trusty Q-tips, because I don't want a heck of a lot of this thing all over the place, you know. It's not necessary to like slather grease all over the place. So I'm gonna just, oops, I got a little too much out. This little trigger thing is not all that nice. Anyway, so I'm gonna put this down the hole. You can't see, kind of hard, right? Put it down the hole and keep my little Q-tip there ready for the next one, and I'll just push this in like that. Now the tool, I think the tool might work in reverse, I'm not sure, but anyway, don't need to because I'm just pushing in. So you push that in, then you find this guy, remember this one has to go in here. So you clip that in, push that plug in right here until it clicks. Or not. It didn't click, it just kind of slid in. So that's there. You flatten the wire down. I know you can't see from the front, but trust me, flatten it down, and then you find that piece that goes over. Give it a little, oh, the bike has got to be washed. You see there's some bug guts and stuff there. But let's take the nice greasy cloth that we've got here. Why not? I'm going to wash the bike anyway, and all of that residual grease is going to come off. So I don't care. As long as it cleans as I go. I do a little cleaning as I go. There, looks good. So I put this on. You've got to catch that little tab in the back here. Push that in there, snap it in place. You hear that click in front? And now, there's the little screw. Okay? I suppose I can change the angle. And Okay, let us try and see if we can shoot. Okay, so this goes here. Okay, right there. I'll screw that in and we'll call this job done on this side. The other side will be exactly the same. So, I mean, I've got the valve check done on this side, on the left side. You saw how to do it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that job on the other side, and all I'm going to shoot on the other side is the measurements, because what I want to do is record my measurements that I'm doing right now. I've already recorded the measurements on the left side. I'm going to record the measurements on the right side and keep it in the description, and that way I know that at 36,000 miles what my measurements were. So I'm not just doing this video just to show you guys, but I'm doing it also to record what I've done for my bike. Okay, now we're on the right side, and we're going to be checking the intakes first. So remember, it's 0.1 to 0.17, and let's see, let me get the right set of gauges out right now, so I don't have to be fishing around too much. Let's try 0.13 first. 0.13. 0.13 on the forward one. 0.13 is binding just a bit. Okay, let's go back to 0.1. 0.1 is going through easily. So you see 0.1 is like that, and then 0.13 is binding up. So it's somewhere between 0.1 and 0.13. So that's fine. Let's check the aft one, the harder one to get, which is this one here. And this one is going through quite easily at 0.1. 0.13, let's try. 0.13 is binding up a bit. So again, that's within spec. It's between 0.1 and 0.13 for both intake valves on the right hand side. So let us go now and get it's 0.34 to 0.41. So let's grab the right feeler gauges in that range, and we've got starting with 0.33. Let's try the forward one first. Oops, 0.33. Yeah, that's going through, and that's grabbing just right. So I think that's good. 0.33. Actually, 0.33 would make it a little bit big, wouldn't it? So let's try 0.35. Yeah, 0.35 is going through. It's going through and grabbing nicely. So I would say that's in range. Let's try the same 0.35 on the aft, the rear one. Oop. 0.35 is binding a bit. I don't know if it's me or if it's actually binding a bit, but let's try 0.33. So 0.35 was binding a bit. 0.33 is going through and nicely. So I would say it's within spec. It's between 0.33 and 0.35, so it's right on the lower edge, just like on the left hand side. So I would say that they're good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. Just wipe off the excess. Now remember, some of the oil drained out, so I'm going to be a little bit low on oil. But guess what? I'm doing an oil change either later on today or tomorrow. So rather, I might just go ahead and do the oil change right now, and then leave tomorrow, Memorial Day, for a ride. I'll go for a nice ride. Knowing me, I'll probably go for a ride this afternoon after I finish doing this. But I think what I'll do now is just button this up, and and then all the steps are exactly like you saw on the left-hand side. The valve cover bolts will be 10 millimeters, and the spark plug, I'll change the spark plug. That'll be 12, not millimeters, Newton meters of torque. Put that in, connect up, put some dielectric grease on that coil, and put the cover back on, and that's it. That's the valve check done. So I think I'll call that as the end of this video, and hopefully it was helpful to you. And now, before I go, what has to happen if they were out? If they were out, what would have to happen is you'd have to take these bolts off, right? I believe these are the bolts. And then this whole cradle here, this whole thing here comes off as an assembly. So you take that out, and then you've got to take these guys, right? The cams off. Now what I would do, and what they recommend you do, is mark where you took them off with respect to these teeth here. Because you want to put them exactly back in the way you found them. Okay? So the teeth should mesh up correctly. Where you took them off, you've got to put some kind of mark. So you'd have to do a little bit more cleaning up of all the grease in there and put a mark somewhere on there so that when you take these cams off, you can put them back exactly afterwards as you found them. So after you take that off, then you'll reveal underneath at the top of the valve springs, there's a retainer, and inside that retainer, in the center of the retainer, are what they call adjustment pads or shims. You've got to actually go and get the right size shims to put in there, such that when you put the gaps back, put the cam lobes back on, you end up with the right valve clearances, right? So that's some calculation that would have to be done, because what has to happen is you have to take out the existing adjustment pads, measure them, and see how much thicker they would have to be, for example, to give you the right clearance. So if your gaps were too big, it means that you'd need a thicker adjustment pad. So you have to measure the pad that is actually there to see what, to see where you are, and then what additional or what new pad you'd have to buy to put in there so that your gap is correct. But that's not part of this video. This video just showed how to check your valve clearances, and given that they're in spec, I just put my valve cover back on and I'm good to go. If ever I were to go and adjust and put some shims on, then that would be another video. That's all for now.